All right, with the start of my first word, my time will begin. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the first Constructive Speech and Debate podcast. This is a podcast for everything speech and debate in Texas. Our names are Ryan Stokes and Kenny Adcock, and we're excited to continue this journey with you. As we go through the season, it is our goal to share some stories, introduce you to experts, and facilitate conversations that we hope will help you throughout your season. Whether you are a coach, student, competitor, or a parent trying to figure out what crazy event your student participates in, welcome to the show. Today, we are joined by our colleague from Whitehouse High School, John Nichols. We're excited to have you back on the show, John. Over the years, John has had the privilege of running one of the largest tournaments that has blossomed in the East Texas area. So this week, we wanted to share with you some insight about preparing, running, and the life after you've decided to host a meet. So with that, let's get to work. Let's tell our listeners about the benefits and struggles of putting on your own tournament. We're going to give you some insight and some advice. I think, Ryan, you're going to give us your checklist, some things that you put together before the tournament ever begins. Is that correct?
Yeah. When I was hosting out at Pine Tree, we'd host one, sometimes two a year. And I created like a little checklist for myself when I was considering the running of our meet. And just to go through that briefly, one, get approval from your school to host a tournament, or if you're going to host more than one, your school needs to know that. Check for potential dates. You don't want to schedule on top of someone within about an hour of you, maybe even out to an hour and a half, because you don't want to be splitting entries with somebody that's in your area. Another thing that you need to do is while you're in that second part is to decide if it's going to be a 1 or a 2 day tournament. The third thing was to create the tournament online. If you don't have any experience with setting up a tournament, reach out and get help. Kenny's a great source for helping inexperienced coaches with tab room. But there are a lot of other people out in the community who have experience running tournaments too. So reach out, find people that have been running tournaments for a while, and pick their ear. We're not the only ones who do this. Also, the fourth one, figure out your tournament layout. You need to know where you're going to hold students. You need to know where you're going to put your judges lounge / hospitality room. Where are you going to run your tab room out of? And then how many competition rooms do you need? After that, start reaching out for hired judges. My recommendation is you're going to need to have about 8 to 10 hired by yourself outside of what other schools bring for an average tournament, just to have on hand, about 8 to 10. And I know that sounds daunting for like small school coaches or even some large schools coaches to find 8 to 10 people that are willing to give up a Saturday to come judge speech and debate. And what I have to say is the internet's a great source. Former students that have graduated from your debate program that are around still in the town are a great source. And then also your teachers. There's nothing wrong with lay judges. Lay judges are fine for invitationals, especially if you give them a guide. And I have a document that I'm going to try to figure out how to link to our YouTube channel that you can download for just a policy lay judges guide to hand a lay judge to who's judging a policy round to kind of help them work their way through it, a rubric of sort. The sixth thing that I want to do is consider what time of year your tournament is. Are you going to need a lot of rooms because it's a heavy part of the CX season, right? So if you're in that November, December, January, and you're hosting a tournament in there, you're probably going to need more rooms than you would in, let's say, October or September or even February, March, right? Because CX, you can't flight it. You're going to just have a ton of rooms if you have a full CX tournament. I would say on average about 10 more rooms than you would need for a CX heavy tournament than you would that's LD, Congress, other IE specific. The last thing on my checklist was get volunteers to help you run your concessions, your check-in table, and to just check on rooms for you. You are going to be a very busy person, in my experience, and it is nice to have people that you can trust to go handle things. So moms of debaters or dads of debaters that want to come up and see what their kid does on a Saturday, see if you can get them involved in helping volunteer. One, it makes parents happy because they feel useful to your program. And then also, they actually are very useful to your program. Um, so yeah, that's like my little checklist that I would go through. Do y'all have anything to add in there that y'all do when y'all prep y'all's tournaments?
I guess the big one was just making sure how much you're going to want to put on yourself in that tournament. Like, are you going to be a UIL only tournament, or did you want to throw in NSDA events as well? Um, if so, which ones? Because there's some tournaments out there. Lindale comes to mind where it'll be a UIL NSDA running all like two different LDs at the same time.
Yeah, and then you have some of the NSDA events that don't make, and just because of a lack of interest out in the East Texas area. But
Yeah.
yeah, so just like John said, if you're considering running those NSDA events, be prepared to expand and shrink your schedule as you get closer to actual competition time.
But no, I highly recommend running. I mean, it's a great fundraiser. If you want an opportunity to be able to travel and go to more tournaments, got to host your tournament.
Well, and it's great because it doesn't officially count as a fundraiser for those small school coaches out there, right? It's a way to bring in some dollars and cents that doesn't actually count as your fundraiser, so you can still
Right.
sell
Like,
the candy bars or the cookie dough or those kinds of things. And so it's a great assistant to the budget. Um, Ryan, one thing I do want to like kind of sing your praises on, man. Like two things I think you've done really well over the years is made friends with janitors. Those guys are the unsung heroes of debate tournaments, making sure like trash is pulled, rooms are clean. I mean, you can have a team, a good like group of teenagers who will stay till the last round or the last bell is rung. But the that janitorial staff, you make sure you thank them on Monday because they're the reason you're not getting that angry email from a teacher that we've all received. And just cause, right? Like I accidentally stole the red pen from my English 2 teacher and she was not happy that I took her red grading pen, right? Like we all have stories that we can share like that. Um, and then the second thing, man, you have trained teachers to judge debate rounds well, right? So if you'll send me that document, I'll make sure it gets linked. But you have pulled teachers from core classes, from electives, from all over the campus, and said, "Hey, you have the minimum qualifications, which is that you graduated or have a GED equivalent, or you're at least 18 or older, and you have a bachelor's degree. You're smart enough. Let me give you the resources and." You've done a great job over the years at getting your staff and getting that buy-in, and I think that says a lot. And your staff will then understand what is this crazy event that we're doing. Why are we spending so much time talking about money or the economy or all of those things? And so you've done those things really well over the years. Um,
Yeah, and what I found was even teachers that never did debate in high school or were never around it in their own life before coercing them into judging for me, they really enjoyed it, right? Because they they get to see the best and the brightest kids doing the best and the brightest work that they do in debate, and it's just a refresher to like see that the education system is working, right? Kids are learning and they can articulate themselves well and they do grasp these hard concepts. And if you're a teacher and you really want to see like some of the fruits of your labor, come see what your kids do that are in debate. Um, if you are teaching a different subject, come see what they do and see how smart they are. I promise you'll enjoy the time.
One of the things I'm most excited about for this upcoming school year is one of the 3 or 4 tournaments we hosted Or City. Our athletic director is planning to come visit and watch rounds. Um, like he's already told me he's gonna pick one of those Saturdays and he's gonna come sit in a couple of rounds and watch what our kids are doing. And I mean, I just think that's incredible, and it communicates a lot. It communicates buy-in, and it helps the atmosphere and the culture. And I mean, it's that old adage, right? Like load up the football players and go to the UIL band contest. Well, let's bring the football players up here on a Saturday and let's see how well they argue. Um, and so I think that's really cool that he's going to do that. I want to shout out Kyle Adams, the athletic director and head football coach at Or City, being willing to even put that on his schedule is a testament to what he's doing at Or City. Um,
I mean, it helps. Doesn't your top LD or play football?
He is the starting defensive lineman, and he is the 2 or the 1, depending on where he's at in the need in the offensive line. But I also think he also really does want to build that community. So we've had a couple of athletes out there, but yeah, it doesn't hurt that he has a reason to come support.
Yeah. So other coaches, don't be afraid to bring in those athletes, right? Like, one, they're the more charismatic kids on campus most of the time, and they're going to help with your recruiting because they're going to, like, other kids will see this kid that they see out on the basketball court or out on the football field, right? Or even if they're like a band kid, right? They're going to see someone who does like cool things and they want to get involved and do the things that kid does. And it's just an extra little recruiting tool if you can get those cool athletes. Um, my evidence for that is High School Musical. Yeah.
I mean, and with those athletes, you also don't have to coach competition, right? Like they inherently want to get that W and they want to work to get that W, and that's a skill in its own right.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So I guess what I kind of want to talk about now is we know what we need to do to get a tournament up off the ground and to get it started. But there is nothing quite as stressful. Maybe whitewater rafting, right? With the speed and the challenges that you have to deal with over the course of hours at a time. And by the end, you're just so exhausted, you go home and like cry yourself to sleep. That is running a tournament. Um, so let's start with like a little, like a good, a bad, and an ugly that you've seen or have happened to you on tournament day. So this could be from you actually hosting the tournament or you going to a tournament and just having something happen that was notable to you.
My first year as a debate coach, I had a student athlete who came to me begging for an opportunity to go to a tournament to show what he could do. And I'm just like, all right, let's go do this. I had him in my speech class. He had a commanding presence, about 6'5", massive linebacker. And I'm like, all right, go to the tournament. He's all fired up. He's ready to go. He's doing extemporaneous speaking. I'm walking to my round. We're passing in the hallway, and he looks at me and he gives me the thumbs up like he's got this. And I'm just like, oh man, this could be awesome. Get done with my round. I didn't see him yet, so I figured, he was off doing his other thing. Go and find his ballot. And I remember distinctly that the judge wrote on the ballot that they had never felt so robbed in a round in all of their life. He had walked in, and the judge was apparently still filling out from the previous speaker and wasn't giving him a whole lot of attention, but he was ready to go. So he waited a couple seconds, and then all of a sudden, with his giant, massive hands, clapped and created an echo in this room. And the judge just stopped, looked up, put the pen down, and was just ready to go. And my kid looked at him, took a deep breath, smiled. I got nothing, and have a nice day, and walked out the room. And the judge wrote an entire page of just of just so much hurt and robbed and just, and then a whole list of things that they could do to work on and hope that I can, make it to where he can give a speech. But they just felt so, a whole page over. I got nothing.
When the attention getting device is so good.
Exactly. I'm just like, all right. It's like you had me at hello, and then you just left me at the altar.
Oh man. That's funny. That's a funny one. So an ugly one that I have is I've had debaters show up for competition and lo and behold they've forgotten their insert important piece of debate clothing here, their blazer, their shirt, their pants, their right shoe, right? They have left something at home that they've needed. And a little trick of the trade of what I've done, since there is no getting new clothes for them at 6 in the morning, unless you have access to your theater closet and a good relationship with that director, you're probably not going to find a replacement before you head off to the tournament. And so what I've told kids is just to tell the judge that you spilt coffee on yourself this morning because your coach slammed on the brakes, to avoid hitting someone in traffic. And that's why you're debating in your regular civilian clothes. But, oh man. And it's only actually happened once, and that's where I actually got the idea from of, coffee spilling on a kid, them having to debate in their regular kid clothes. Kenny, you got anything?
So I'll share two with you. The first one is on the hosting a tournament side. Back when I first began hosting tournaments at Marshall, I'll show up at like 6:30, when my registration's set to 8 to make sure everything's unlocked, the doors are good, where the lights are on, we're ready to go. And then when you put the rooms in Joy of Tournaments back in the old software, what you need to make sure is that you unlock the doors in the right hallway. Because when you pair rounds and you send everybody to their rooms and you have the entire length of the hallway that feels like 100-mile walk of every single door being locked because nothing was opened, that was a great trial by fire in my own experience. We got everything going. The one thing that I will tell coaches, if you host a tournament, be prepared to be perpetually late. The tournaments inherently run about 45 minutes to an hour. I ran about 3 hours late that day. So I since grown and gotten some grace and have a pretty good track record at getting a tournament out on time or as close to time as possible. But yeah, that was a 3-hour delay after everything, cleaned itself up. And then the second is I've been in the classroom for 9 years. I've yelled at one kid in my 9-year career. And when I say yell, I mean like truly uncorked and just let a kid have it, because it was my first district tournament post-COVID at Ore City. And I was telling him, I was like, we're going to show up dressed to, compete. We're going to do LD extent. This is, we're getting ready to go. And everybody shows up, right? Everybody's wearing their suits. Everybody's doing that, right? And I didn't even think about coffee. I didn't care because this young man showed up in cargo shorts and a polo with his tennis shoes on. And that was his intent to compete at the district tournament. Now, mind you, this young man's like 6'4". Thankfully, we're about the same size. So you two have been at Ore City. So the bus is parked out front to get ready to go. And from the bus door to the bathrooms in the foyer to the bathroom walk back, I'm just letting this young man have it, because as I'm sitting there, like giving him quite literally the clothes off of my own back so he can look like the debate attire that, is kind of the stigma and the perceived approach. And I'm sitting there thinking, because at CX District, it was cold, so I was wearing a hoodie and a hat, and I wasn't super formal. Probably my pretty normal debate attire. And a man I've grown to respect a great deal. Like my Ore City superintendent and my principal are very formal. And so they wanted a bit of a different dress, and they addressed that, and they talked to me. And so I came in, I was wearing slacks. I was wearing my Ore City like academic polo. I was, I had done my hair. I had really, made sure that I looked like a formal professional, instead of, the weekend warrior that sometimes debate coaches end up being on those Saturdays. Well, my first district, I was a little nervous. So to kind of ail those nerves and, not be as adulty, and I had on a pair of purple and green Scooby-Doo socks. That they were for me, they were for my mindset, they were to help me kind of keep my nerves down, and nobody else had to know until this young man showed up and had on cargo shorts. And so after having that conversation, I'm walking outside and my UL coordinator pulls up and I get this young man on the bus, and I'm sitting here in cargo shorts, a dress shirt, and with my black tennis shoes on and my neon purple Scooby-Doo socks. And I walk up to her and I'm like, I came formal. I was here professionally dressed. Such and such student. This is what happened. And she just puts her hand in her head. And my UL coordinator is a very dominant, like British accent lady. She's an incredible lady, and you just heard her. And then as we're sitting there talking, my principal, who had that conversation with me, comes around the corner, in his truck, and he's just parking, and you see his face, and his eyes are probably about as big as a raccoon, and he just looks at me, and he gets out of his truck, and he just starts to land to me. I'm like, before you do that, understand this is what happened. And it was, like it was a serious enough thing that he didn't want me going to district looking like that, and I get it, I understand. But we went and found the athletic director had a pair of like black athletic jeggings that I threw over the cargo shorts so I could get us to district. Um, but man, like the thing that I've learned is students will never cease to impress you with what they don't understand or show up to wear to a tournament. Um,
So I had one more, I guess, ugly, I guess, when it came to the tournament last year, district. This was a twofer. So Ryan will know this one. I got COVID the night before. I tested positive COVID the night before our CX district tournament. And so my UIL coordinator had to take it over. One of my teams got stuck in the mud, buried her car about half her wheels all the way into the mud. Almost didn't make it to the tournament. But then that following weekend, which it was, I guess, 2 days later, we were hosting our Whitehouse tournament, which I was not present for at that one. I don't think I don't know. I would think I was able to get Rory because I don't think Kenny was available for that one.
yeah, that was the same weekend that I was working troop.
Yeah, Troop. That's right. Troop was doing her. They were starting their new one. So thankfully, but I can't. Nothing. I never felt worse as a coach than not being there at a district tournament for my kiddos who need you not just there to, and I want to tell this to every coach out there, it's more than just being able to provide them with an answer to an argument or what to do when you hear this or try this new strategy. Sometimes you just need to take them aside, look them in the eye, and say, you can do this, and be that reassurance that they need before going into that round to remind them what got them there. And not being there made that extremely difficult for me. And I hear that there was a lot of fun there too. I think Jenna yelled at Stokes and some other people.
Yeah, yeah. It's okay. It's okay. We got it all sorted.
We got it all sorted.
That
And by the
actually
way, we have made all those changes to this district tournament.
good, good. I'm not there now, but good. Um, so that John, your last thing actually kind of segues into like the bad, right? Like us as coaches have seen the bad happen at tournaments or while we're hosting a tournament, and one of the bads that I want to start with is there's nothing that makes me feel worse as a coach than seeing a like policy or an LD kid um, just forfeit around because they don't have arguments to go against the affirmative. They're caught so off guard that they just get up there and you can just see it on them. Like there's just like an aura coming off of them of just, oh no, I've been defeated. Right. And there's two types of kids that happens to. There's the ones that know their coach will disown them as like disown them if they come out and say they forfeited, so they like just whimper through like a poor mouse that's like being played with by a cat, or they don't have a coach that's going to give them the business for forfeiting, and then they just go, no, I quit, right? And the way I handle those kids, if I'm the judge in the back of the room, is I will make them stay for whatever time was forfeited. We're going to sit here and we're going to talk about what you could have done in this round to actually like run against the affirmative team or to like have an argument. And then I also tell the affirmative team, like, here's what I would actually do against you, right? If you haven't prepped out these ideas or these arguments, right? That's something that you can get from this round because I hate the idea of a round going wasted at a tournament due to a gotcha moment.
I think wasted is probably not the right answer, or right word because it's kind of just misused. But one thing, but I'm sorry to interrupt you, John, but I think it's also important for our listeners to hear that it is okay to have COVID and miss district. As hard as it is, as hard as it is, you needed to take care of yourself and you needed to do those things, and your team survived and all of those things. Like don't get me wrong, I totally get it, but I do think it is important for our people, like our listeners, to hear that it's okay, right? Like that, like life happens, and unfortunately, sometimes things suck that are outside of our control, and nobody wants that. I'm not saying I want you to get COVID and miss CX ever again. But the important part is that I think it's important to hear that your kids survived, right? Like they made it through district. They, it may not have gone the way they wanted it to, but it definitely was a growing experience and something that,
No, yeah, I'm terribly, terribly proud of them. And I mean, it was my mom who made me test, and for the better part of that evening and that debate day, I was so resentful of her. And then at the end of it, I realized I would have felt a million times worse had I gone to that tournament knowing I had COVID and then got them sick or got, some other people sick.
because that's not the way to get the alternate to state.
No, no, it's not. That was a thought. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Joke. I joke. I kid. I kid.
Listen, and that district was rough. I mean, I was blessed enough, like my team was blessed enough to come out on top of it. But like the team that took second, we rematched in octos. No, quarters at state.
Yeah, because that
Right?
was
Like
your turn.
it would have been quarters because it was the second out round. Right? So
Yeah.
like it was a hard district, and John, your kids did well considering their coach wasn't there, and we're probably like seeded as one of the top four teams at the tournament going in, and like they performed admirably.
They
So,
were one win. They would have one win. Had they had won, they would have gone up against. I think it was Tyler High kids that who did the upset versus
mhm,
Hallsville.
Hallsville.
Yeah.
yep, like it was a close one.
But parroting off you, yeah, my ugly, I guess, is might have one rule in debate, and it's not to quit. Once you quit, the round stops, the learning stops. You have no idea what that judge is thinking. That judge could be voting for you or looking for any reason to vote for you against the other team. Um, I'm going to name drop him because he knows. Aiden Berjandy, I'm sure y'all are familiar with him. As a freshman, his first tournament, he quit round one, and I went full dad on him. And the rest of that tournament, I think he won his last two rounds, and then he was a different kid pretty much the entire time. Preached it all to all the novices. Just don't
Okay,
do it. You never want to see Nichols that way again.
yeah. So like there will be bad moments, and it's not just like students. Sometimes if you're running a tournament, you'll have a coach get really angry about a ballot, and my advice to you if you're running your tournament and you get a coach who's really angry about a ballot, and I've been angry about a ballot, Kitty's been angry about a ballot, John's been angry about a ballot. Everybody who's a debate coach has been angry about a ballot if they've coached more than one tournament. Okay. The way you handle that as a contest director is take that in, listen to their complaint, actively listen to them, respond with, we will try to do better next year. We'll take that into consideration. Like if it's the judge that just needs training, or if it was just something that needs to be addressed, let them know. But do not let a judge sit there and eat your ear for 25 minutes. You don't have time for that. Just being honest with you with the stressors of a tournament, it is okay to tell them, thank you. I understand that you're angry. I have received your feedback. I'm going to take it into consideration to make my tournament better next year. But you are actively making my tournament worse at the moment for everyone because I can't actually go address the problem because you are continuing to tell me about it when I do grasp the situation. Right? Like handle it as professionally as you can, but it is okay to tell them to go away. Like
And within the
um
debate space too, you're limited. I mean, it's not like you can go and truly override what a judge's decision is.
Yeah, like it is only I'll take that as feedback to fix. If I can fix it this tournament, not that ballot, I can't fix that ballot. The judge made their decision, right? But if that's something that, like, if that judge doesn't need to judge the next round, I can't actually go do that if you're yelling at me. So it's okay to tell them, I've received your feedback. I understand that you're angry. Go find someone to vent to, but I can't be that person. I'm sorry. Right.
Which,
And if they go ahead.
which is why I think it's important to highlight the idea of you being tournament director and have somebody to run your tap room. Because you're going to have those moments where somebody just needs to rant to you, and you kind of you got to figure out where the time balance is, and where your commitment is, because we've all had judges as tournament directors, as tab staff, that and it's kind of one of the big pieces that I would encourage you, if you're going to host a tournament, make sure you know the rules.
Yep.
Because the other coaches will, right? Like if you're running into somebody who is a prose and poetry coach, you better know how to calculate those ranks. You better make sure that you're doing the right version and not the NSDA version. So I would highly encourage you, if you're going to host, make sure you understand the tabulation rules, the requirements of the event or the circuit that you're competing on.
Yep. All right, real quick, let's highlight some of the goods that we've seen. I'll go ahead and start. I love the first time as a coach, that feeling of taking your team to a tournament. You finally have a full team. You got kids in every event, and they all show up. They all try really hard, and you know what? You walk away with one of those 1, 2, 3 place sweepstakes trophies to go put in your classroom. It is like just a highlight, even if it's just an invitational, it's not your district one. It just feels so good to take a group of kids and show them that although debate sometimes feels like an individual or just a 2-on-2 thing, we are a team. We have an ultimate goal that we are trying to reach for our district and the state level, or in the region level, well, region and then state. But like, to get them used to that feeling, get yourself used to that feeling of being a coach, knowing that you can do that. You can go compete with other schools and walk away with a lot of wins. That's a good that I like to highlight, is that first time feeling.
So mine's actually pretty similar, because my least and favorite thing comparatively from speech and debate to UIL is that UIL split by large and small. Speech and debate is kind of like a Super Smash Brothers brawl, and we're all on the 2A to 5A side. It's just you dance and everybody shows up. And so, like, this past year, being the overall team at the Pine Tree tournament was one of the highlights of my invitational season, and getting to look at all of our team and say, as a team, we did this, right? The 6th place in extemp, the 1st place in CX, the 3rd place in poetry, all of that played a part, and getting the team buy-in and what we're moving towards. And watching the team camaraderie, watching everybody come together and take that picture. Man, like that sweepstakes, and then losing to John Nichols at Whitehouse by 4 points at Hallsville was salt in an open wound. But respect is respect. I love good competition, so that's the other piece, right? Like, competing is just so much fun.
Yep.
The
John,
good
you got
for
a good
me,
to add?
yeah, it was when I was having rebuilding. I just moved, rebuilding my squad at Whitehouse, and we had an okay showing at district. It wasn't very anything like spectacular, and we went to nationals, and my kids worked their rear ends off, ready to go, and we just got snottoed, just left and right. And I walked up to them, and they were all sitting at the table, and I'm trying to, in my mind, as a coach, what do I say? What do I do? Kind of thing. And I guess they could see it, and they were like, "We know, Mr. Nichols." And I said, "Okay, what do we want to do?" And they all looked at each other, and then looked at me and said, "We want to win." And then we spent the rest of that year, and then going into the summer, getting ready for next year, and then it was a whole new ball game.
Yep.
And hearing that was awesome. It made me feel like I've been doing the right thing as a coach and as a debater.
So Ryan, before you call the timer, I do think it's important for our audience to know, listeners out there, that we're three guys who understand tab room, understand joy of tournaments. We're not the only ones. If you need help running a tournament or you need help putting a schedule together, reach out to one of us. Reach out to Rory, Julian Erdman, Kim Sloan. There's a myriad of people in the East Texas area that would love to help you host, because we want to build more tournaments. We want to see the circuit grow. And if you need help on tab room, reach out to me, reach out to Ryan. I know these guys, they've been incredible resources and incredible helps. Rory's been an incredible phone call. The resources are abundant. Make sure you reach out. We'll do whatever we can to help you out.
And remember, find those little moments in your season that make you realize that this is why you give up all your weekends and all your Saturdays. Find those good moments. And then keep the bad, the ugly as little moments that make you laugh. Try to find those silver linings throughout your debate season. Oh, there's the timer. Thanks for joining us for the first Constructive Speech and Debate podcast, as we just kind of talked about story time and hosting tournaments. So join us next time. We'd love to have you back.